All right, so you've seen the slump mold, now here's the hump mold. So I'm going to use something that does not have a foot. If I tried to do a hump mold over this, you can imagine trying to get the clay off. It's going to get all caught up in that foot and it's going to be an unattractive shape anyway. So we have some of these bisque molds that are just formed specifically for this purpose, for making hump molds, or for making pieces on a hump mold. So my clay is nice and soft again, nice and plastic. I'm going to again cut larger than my circle. I'm going to just kind of estimate it so that I'm sure I have enough clay. And erring on the side of too much is a good idea, because you can always trim it away, but boy, you get all the way through this process and you don't have enough clay, that's going to be discouraging. All right, so here is my piece. Now I'm gonna, again, strengthen the slab a little bit before I go. So I'm smoothing that with the serrated rib. This time I did it after I cut it. It doesn't really matter. Just wanna give it a little bit of strength and then pretty up your surface. Now in this case, I'm going to add a texture just so that you can see that process. Adding a texture works better on a slump, or on a hump mold, because you're texturing the outside of it. If I was to texture the interior, A, it's not going to be seen, B, it's going to be hard to run it up those edges, whereas on the outside, or if I put the texture on first and then put it in, if I did it the other way, I would be muting my texture by using that magic sock and kind of pounding it down, so I'd lose the crispness of that. Here I'm going to do it on the outside, so anyway, you'll see how it all works out. Stay tuned. Keep watching, people. All right. Got a nice, beautiful, smooth slab. Okay. Now I am going to do a hump mold. So I'm just kind of matching it up to the surface, or to the roundness. And then again, you'll see, right, it doesn't just lay right down, and that's because that's how clay is. So here is a great trick to how to get the clay to adhere to the surface. Oh, here it is, magic sock. So instead of just trying to pound down, if you watch just pounding down, right, then it just squirts out more this way. So if instead, if you pick up that outside edge before you pat, picking up that outside edge gives that extra length kind of a place to go. So I'm picking up the edge while I move it down, pick up the edge, gets more of the clay closer to the mold. Not exactly sure why it works, but it works great. So if you're looking for round forms, bisque molds are a great way to do it. You can also throw them, trim off the edges, or trim off the foot so that you just have a nice round. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to work it a little bit more by hand, and then I'm going to texture. So as you can see, I'm letting that edge come up, and then that helps the edge of the slab get closer to my hump mold. Lift that edge. There we go. There we go. All right. Takes a little working. Don't get discouraged. Just give it some time. A little bit of gentle touching. There we go. Okay, yep, I'm happy with that. So now again, right, I've got all this extra slab. Want to be sure that I don't trim off too much. So I'm just going to kind of come to the outside, make sure I can feel where the mold is. There it is. Okay, it's right there, so I want to go beyond that. So I'm going to go a little bit beyond, and you know, I'll run into the mold if I get too close. Oops, there I fell off. Come on now. Notice that I'm cutting down as opposed to in. If I cut in, I'll definitely cut short of my mold. And that's absolutely fine if that's the shape that you want, right? Maybe you don't want a skirted edge on that piece. Maybe you want it to just end shorter. That's fine, but that's a decision that I'm gonna make later. I'm not gonna make that decision right now. I'm gonna wait till after I add some texture. So now I'm gonna put some texture on this. I'm not sure what animal you guys are doing, but let's make believe that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna use, yeah, I like this one. This is an MKM tool. It's got those nice little ridges on there. I might actually take this off the handle, or it might just jump off the handle, who knows? I'm gonna give it a little bit of moisture. Oh, I said the M word. What's wrong with me? Okay, so now I'm just gonna roll this over the surface. I'm gonna start at one end, give it that texture. Sound effects help. There we go. Ooh, yeah, I'm liking that. Right, coming over this way and this way. And this, the nice thing about texturing this way too is that I've got a hard surface underneath, so I can give this some decent pressure, right? If this was just hanging out as a clay piece like the one that I already took out of the mold, it wouldn't be anywhere near as strong and I wouldn't be able to give it this much pressure. And you'll see when I ask my cameraman to come in for a close-up, that you get a really nice crisp texture from that. All right, and then from this stage, right, it's on a mold, so I don't have to worry about it breaking, but you can see that I've got, you know, some uneven edging. I can go ahead and trim that with my fettling knife now, or I can decide that I want to come up a little bit and get rid of that skirted edge, which I think I do. And we talked about that earlier when I was talking about trimming it initially, but now I'm gonna turn it into the piece that I want it to be, right? Maybe this is a turtle shell, or maybe it is a blind mole rat. Okay, here we go. Just going to set it up, set my knife up above that skirt. I'm holding really steady and just turning the piece. That keeps me at a pretty nice even line. There we go. I'm through. Slide that, take off that band, and there is my nice even mold. Now, one thing to worry about with this, right? As opposed to the slump mold where the clay is inside, when that clay is inside, it will shrink. It will shrink away from the mold, smaller, right? So you can leave them in a slump mold, but you cannot leave the piece on a hump mold, right? Because that clay is going to shrink, the bisque mold is not. So this needs to come off in the soft leather hard stage. Sometimes that seems complicated, but if you just flip it into your hand, lift the bowl out, have a wear board handy, put the wear board on top, flip it down. There you go. All right, have fun making slabs.